Namaste. Welcome to the 4th edition of the Global Festival of Oneness, organized by Indica Moksha, celebrating the life and works of Adi Shankara. We will start with a prayer. Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru-Paramparam. We are very pleased to have with us Dr. Aravinda Rao, who is going to talk to us about the topic Oneness as Foundation of Social Harmony. Before we get on to the lecture, I'd like to introduce the speaker. Dr. Rao is a retired Director General of Police, Andhra Pradesh, who studied Sanskrit under Mahamahopadhyaya Padma Shri Dr. Shri Pulela Shri Ramachandrudu and studied Vedanta under Mahamahopadhyaya Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati. He has authored many books on Hindu philosophy. Welcome, Dr. Rao. I think your camera is off, yeah.
Okay. Om Namo Gurubhyaha. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Thank you, Anuradhaji, for the introduction. This evening, the subject which has been suggested to me is about oneness. Oneness, how it is the foundation for social harmony. In fact, this subject has been suggested by Mr. Nitin Sridhar, taking into account my background in the government service, particularly in police. So that has been the cause for this title. So the title is Oneness as the foundation for social harmony. In fact, I wanted to prepare a PPT on that, but the material was long, so I just prepared some points only. I'll just share the text. Yeah, it's like this: oneness and social harmony. What does this? What does the title suggest? The title suggests that social harmony is the objective, and oneness is the means for that. If we have oneness in the society or in the minds of the people, then there is social harmony. That is, all the people are on the same wavelength. They all think like have the same philosophy of life. They all have same attitude to life, and then they all accept one particular dharma. So something like that. They do have certain common principles. So that is the oneness. Generally, that is what is the meaning. Then, if we see history, all societies, all through history, all societies, they wanted social harmony. But they had their own understanding of social harmony, and the context can change. The context can be ideological oneness, such as democracy. Now we are seeing that people like the Western powers, they want to impose democracy. They not impose democracy; they want to achieve democracy in the so-called totalitarian countries, and then they do interfere in them. So democracy can be one type of oneness. Communism can be another type of oneness. So it is ideological oneness. Or there can be political oneness. So there is one superpower which wants to dominate the whole world. Suppose there is one superpower which wants to control the whole world. That is one type of oneness. No, but here what we are talking is not that type of ideological or political oneness, but we are talking about understanding, about oneness, a philosophical oneness, which is actually a reality. If it were not to be there, then we can't we can't talk about it. Suppose there is something, there is oneness, then we have to see what exactly is that oneness. So then let us see. Religion has become. We have to, in this context, we should also talk about religion, because it is religion which is actually making a claim. We do have the absolute truth with us. We do have that absolute, whatever is the absolute reality or whatever is the absolute truth. We have that reality. And people say in the beginning of 21st century or after the fall of Soviet Russia, etc., people thought that religion has gone into the background. But then people like Samuel Huntington and others, they pointed out that religion has not gone into the background. Religion is very much there, and religion actually is becoming the identifying factor, and that is the factor behind which many nations are likely to mobilize themselves or they group themselves. So that is what he suggested, and what he suggested is what we are seeing. And here, really, we have to accept the religion as a reality. And every culture or religion, they have their own idea of oneness, and they want all others to accept it. This also we see in history. And for achieving that oneness, there have been genocides, battles, and conquests, and all types of things. And there is a huge machinery also to enforce that oneness. So coming to this oneness, if we examine what is this oneness, there are two types of onesses, if we want to say, two kinds of oneness, let us say. One is that which is contrived, that which is achieved by force. For example, the best example is religion only. The entire Western world can be an example. And in contrast to that, the other oneness is that which is based on reality. Reality is something which is based on inquiry, and this reason inquiry is again, and when we use the word inquiry, it means that we are using reasoning, and not it is not something which is a revelation or something which is some communication to one particular person, but it is sort of inquiry, reasoning, and then deliberations by hundreds of thinkers and hundreds of sages, we call. So this one kind of oneness is based on belief. God gives his message to one particular person, and that particular person is lucky enough to send it to all other people, to influence all other people, and that becomes the oneness. And in contrast, we have this oneness which is achieved by thinking. Then the first oneness, it contradicts with all types of reasoning and science. But the other type of oneness, which we see, for example, the philosophy which we find the Vedanta philosophy, it accommodates the science, and science and philosophy, they go together at various levels. So science is actually an associate. And this oneness, the first oneness, is achieved by destruction, but leading to an ego aggrandizement. What is when we say oneness? In oneness, normally there should not be ego, but here it is actually ego enforcing one's ego on others. Then that is leading to ego aggrandizement. But the other one is by peace by self-discipline. When we use the word shanti, what is the root in that word shanti? The root, Sanskrit root, is shama. Shama is the root. Shama means the antarindriya nigraha. Shama. Antarindriya nigraha is self-restraint. You see, one type of peace is by putting bombs, do some carpet bombing on a place and then achieve peace. So that is a one type of peace. But another type of peace is absolutely controlling one's own mind. Mind is passions and raga, dvesha, and all those things you are controlling. And the first one is my oneness against your oneness, and it leads to friction. The other type is oneness is not forced. It is not forced. Those who cannot understand or accept, they are free to have their own tradition. It is only an option. You see, in the first type, a person can force you. Yes, you have to jolly well accept it. But in the second type, like Lord Krishna says at the end of the Gita, he says, okay, for somebody who doesn't want to understand, for somebody who wants to criticize you, just leave him. You need not tell this to somebody who doesn't want to listen. So there is an option. If you want to come into the path of knowledge, you come into the path. Otherwise, you be on your own, at your own level. Then in the first type, thousands of people can be forced. We have seen in history, but thousands of people can be forced to accept oneness. I am talking about this oneness because religion also claims. If they don't claim, we will not be talking about it. Religions usually claim, yes, we have the truth and this is absolute truth. So that is the reason why I am including that. So thousands of people can be forced, but here it is not a mass movement. It is something which is an individual journey. If I want to study Vedanta, I want to know the truth, I should read the text. I have to go to a teacher. I have to follow the prescribed methods of sadhana to control my own anger, my own levels of raga, dvesha, etc. The guru is like a doctor who examines me and who examines at every step and then sees my, like a doctor sees the BP levels or cholesterol levels. It is the teacher who checks the level of raga, dvesha, etc. Shama, dama, titiksha, all these levels are tested by a guru. Then let us see, come to the subject now. The framework of our Vedic literature, if we see, Upanishads, this is one standard example which I quote very often because in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is so clearly mentioned. This, in fact, I might have quoted in my earlier talks also. For example, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the son goes to the father and he asks the father, "Oh, father, tell me, Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmayati." So, oh, my dear sir, you please tell me what is that Brahman. Then the father, who is an enlightened person, that Varuna. So he says, Bhragurvai Varunihi, Bhragu is the son, and then Varuna is the father. So if the father tells, he gives a frame of reference. Okay, you examine on these lines. For example, if you constitute some inquiry, commission of inquiry, they have these terms of reference and frame of reference, etc. So this frame of reference is yato vaimani bhutani jayante ye najata nijivanti. So like that, where you just inquire from where all these things which we see, all these things have come into existence. And these things, they survive for some time, and these things, they go back, and you find that particular thing from which all these things emanate. So that is the frame of reference. And in order to inquire, what are the tools you have? The tools you have is your Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, your Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, etc. Annam, Pranam, Chakshu, Shrotram, Mano, Vachamiti. Your Jnanendriyas, your Karmendriyas, and also your Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. This is what you have. And what is the method of inquiry? Tapasa Brahma Vijijñāsasva. And by logical, tapa is tapa alochane. The meaning of tapas is alochana, that is thinking, logical thinking. So that means he has to study the Vedas. Vedas means Upanishads also. Vedas and Upanishads. He has to understand the exact import of those lines. And then he has to go to a teacher, and then he has to resolve all his doubts, etc. And then he has to realize it, not only intellectually, but if he has to become that, because the text says Tattvamasi. If he just merely theoretically understands, it doesn't mean that he has become Brahman. Not only that, he has to actually transform himself internally. So that is what the student is expected to do. Then what is this one? This oneness, if we see, this one reality. What is this oneness? All the Upanishads, they say about how this Brahman is Eka, Ekam, Sat. There are so many definitions. The easiest definition and a good, very concise and very good definition is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, which again is from Taittiriya Upanishad. And it translates to, if I want to translate into English, infinitely existing consciousness. That is the only reality. Satyam is reality, that which is Trikala Badhyam, that which cannot be negated at any point of time. Jnanam, if you simply mean Satyam, then it can mean, okay, that is some dumb thing which is infinitely pervading. It is not some dumb thing, it is of the nature of Jnana, it is of the nature of consciousness. And again, it is not limited. It is not like your Jnanam and my Jnanam, which is where there is a duality. If I am seeing you, there is a duality. I am seeing you, I am separate and you are separate. But this particular Jnana, it is Anantam. There is no duality in that. It is infinitely existing consciousness. There is no duality. There is not knowing in the sense that we know an object. There is no object. It is objectless intelligence. Then it is not a person, as in the case of a religion. Religion always thinks of a person. And particularly if we see all religions, whether it is our own religions or any other Western religion also, they talk about a God who is somewhere sitting in the sky, heaven, and then he controls and then he rules. He has got an establishment, he has got an administration, etc. And now what do our texts say? This one consciousness, that one thing which is infinite consciousness, it is manifesting as the universe. Of course, here there can be difference. So there is there is different thinking in different schools, and of course that we have to accept. We have accepted all those differences. And Advaita Vedanta, particularly because now we are talking in the context of Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta tells that this intelligence manifests as the universe, Universe means both Sthavara Jangama. That is, Sthavara Jangama is both that which is inanimate and also, or rather, insentient and sentient, both. Then we tend to see diversity. Then here, normally, our normal initial reaction is that we see so much of diversity. But the texts say, yes, there is only oneness, there is only one cause behind all these things. That one particular thing, it is the material cause, it is the intelligent cause, all these things, avinna nimitta upadana karanam, that is Ishvara at level of Ishvara, not at the level of Brahma. Brahma is again, it is only vivarta upadana karanam. We need not go into that now. So this only by examination that we can see oneness. Then who are the people who established? If we see Sage Vyasa or Badarayana, who has written that Brahma Sutras, again there is some difference of opinion. Whoever has written that Brahma Sutras has done a magnificent job. That is the first critical analysis of the Upanishads. A very critical analysis, because you take one statement here, that statement in one Upanishad is contradicting with the statement of another statement in some other Upanishad. And then there are certain common topics on that particular common topic. On the common topic, what does one Upanishad say? What does another Upanishad say? Is there some unity of thought in that, or is there contradiction in that? So that Brahma Sutra is a very great experiment. Not experiment. It's a very great thesis, which establishes that Ekavakyata, the critical analysis, and establishes that Ekavakyata, that is unity of thought in the entire Upanishads. And that is the reason why Shankaracharya's Bhashyam, if we say, Sarvesham Vedanta Vakyanam Advaye Brahmani Tatparyam, he says in the beginning of Brahma Sutra Bhashyam. So like that, that is Advaye Brahmani. One non-dual Brahma is the purport, the entire message and purport of the Upanishads is that. Then Shankaracharya and others, they firmly established it. And if we see this philosophy which we have, all people are not at the level of that Brahman. All people are not at the intellectual level to understand what is that Brahman and what is that consciousness, etc. So people want some particular god, some god form in order to worship, etc. So it is a sort of all-inclusive philosophy, because it has to take into account people of various levels. So it is an all-inclusive philosophy which accepts all names and forms at the practical level. That is what we call Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma is a Brahma, or rather a particular name and form with associates, with functions and form. Then the reality is Nirguna. So is this not real? This is partly real. This is actually Vyavahara Satta. Vyavahara, at the level, at empirical level, it is real. At the absolute level, this Nirguna is real. This attributeless, impersonal entity, that is Brahman. And the pronoun which is used for that is it. Brahman, when we refer to that, it. Then, in this way, we could harmonize. The philosophers could harmonize all Indian traditions under the umbrella of Upanishads that we all know. And Shankaracharya was called Shanmata Stapanacharya. And various traditions were harmonized under the umbrella, brought under the umbrella of Upanishads. And again, the one great thing is nothing is rejected. Suppose somebody is doing idol worship, you are not condemning him. And somebody is performing rituals, you are not condemning him. Ritual actually is a very good practice, a very good purifying practice. So, na buddhi bhedam janayet, Gita says, na buddhi bhedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidwan yuktas samacharan, it says. So, a person who is a realized person, he is asked to encourage all the practices. So, that is the reason why even our Swamijis who are enlightened people, they come, they participate in some puja. Okay, they participate in that puja. It doesn't mean that Swamiji is very much interested in that puja. So Swamiji is participating in that just to be a sort of role, to conform to the social needs. And then if the Swami doesn't do that, then all other people will be confused. This Swami is not doing it. Why should I do that? So to be a good role model and to establish some good practices in society, the Swamiji may be doing it. But then he is at a different level. Even when he is doing karma, he is at a totally different level. So we are able to harmonize all these traditions, various traditions. We have got so many traditions in India. And as long as the Upanishadic thought was actively present in the society, there was no disharmony. It is only when Upanishadic thought became weak sometime in the 14th, 15th centuries, then only the fights between Shaiva, Vaishnava, and various other things, they started. So we, in our tradition, we don't reject anything. All have a place, and all are accepted to be various means to purify a person and make him eligible to the next level. The highest level is the Jnana path. So, in order to come to the Jnana path, he has to go through various steps. Then, what we see ultimately, we see diversity at the practical level. We see diversity at the practical level and oneness at the absolute or philosophical level. And because it is all inclusive, some people started saying, in fact, if you have heard Zakir Naik and some other people who speak like I speak, they quote various lines. For example, Kena Upanishad, they quite frequently quote Yad Vachana Bhyaditam Yena Vaga Bhyadyate Tadeva Brahman Vidhi Nedam Yedidam Upasate. They are very fond of quoting 4-5 mantras like that. And then they say, what does the line say? Nedam Yedidam Upasate. Idam yet tvaya yet upasate, janaha upasate. Idam Brahma na. That is the meaning. What people worship is not the reality. So that is what it means. Nedam yad idam upasate. What people worship is not the reality. So that is what they say. Hey, what you are worshipping this Vishnu, you are worshipping this Shiva, but your own Upanishad says that all this is totally false. And what your Upanishads say is our God. So that is, they are able to impress. They are able to impress some people. So unless we know Vedanta to some extent at least, so we will not be able to counter them. So that is another problem with us. In fact, Zakir Naik says like that, and many other people also from the same group, they do quote, they are very fond of quoting certain things from Upanishads and then saying that, yes, what the God mentioned in your Upanishads is what is in our book also. But you are not following it, we are following it. That is the final mean thing. So now, for achieving or rather understanding this oneness, what are the means which are suggested in our books? So in our books, for example, meditation, various types of meditation. Meditation is actually willingly we are actually taking a symbol. You see, if you are unwilling to do that, nobody can help you. Willingly, you have accepted a symbol. Then, for example, if you see Om and how it represents Brahman, if we go into the meaning of Om, it may take some time, but I can refer you, you can quickly we can go to the Mandukya commentary, Shankaracharya's commentary on Mandukya Upanishad, where he explains how this Om has been derived. For example, in physics, we use the terms like G for gravity, V for velocity, then R for radius, and something like D for diameter, etc. But then can we say like that God means G, capital G? It's not like that. So here what is done is, how it is derived is, what is our idea of God? God is something which is infinite. God is something which is beyond time. So it is something which is infinite. It is just beyond time. And what all has happened in the past, the present, and future, all those things have to be covered if you are using a abbreviation for God. If you are using a name for God. In fact, it is not only an abbreviation to be used as a upasana, for upasana, but it is also the name. So that is what Shankaracharya says. Vachakatvena, pratikattvena, vachakatvena. Pratika means a small symbol which you are putting in front of you, and then meditating on that, using it as a sort of alambana. But here this is vachaka. Vachaka means it denotes Brahma. How does it denote Brahma? That means it has to give us all the information about Brahma. So how does that Om give information about Brahma? So then there is a fairly long discussion in that thing. A, U, Ma. A represents the entire, the whole past, present, and future. What all the Shabda Prapancha, all the words which have occurred in human mind, not only in India, but all over the world, all over the universe. So all that Shabda Prapancha is denoted by that. And when all the Shabda Prapancha, naturally it corresponds to some Vastu Prapancha. Vastu is object world, the verbal world and also the object world. So this verbal world corresponds to that object world. So that object world is denoted by that. Then ma, when you say ma, it is closing. Ma. A is the beginning. U is all the changes which take place in language. And ma is when you close it. So the whole universe, what all is there, past, present, and future, it is covered by that. And all human experience which is there, Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupti is covered by that. So like that, Shankaracharya explains that. And in that process, Om becomes the Vachaka for Brahman. So these meditations are prescribed to us to understand that oneness. Then, for example, daily meditation on Gayatri also. Gayatri, for example, Gayatri is another way. When we say Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, then that particular, that consciousness which is enlivening all the antahkaranas of all the beings, I am not different from that. I am that Dhimahi. I meditate it as my self. So that way, and again we say Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmana Karomi Yadya Sakalam Parasmai Narayana iti samarpayami. Then I am offering all what all I do, all the works to that cosmic being. So there is one absolute reality Brahman. At a lower level, we have got this cosmic being. Because we are also having an upadhi, this body-mind complex, we are having an upadhi. We are doing some karma in this world at an empirical level. And at that, whatever karma we are doing at the empirical level, you are offering it to that cosmic entity. You are working in tune with that cosmic entity, or you are working in tune with that cosmic scheme, we can say. Then meditations such as Purusha Sukta, Uttaranarayanam Rudram. This also I keep quoting always. Purusha Sukta again is a meditation on the oneness of Sakri and that whole universe. Purusha itself is that Hiranyagarbha, and how that from Hiranyagarbha, how that Virat is there, how that Virat emanates, or Virat is visualized, and how various things in the universe, they are also visualized. Then Uttaranarayanam, there are lines like Sab Brahma, Sashiva, Sahari, Sen, Rasotshara, Paramaswarat. What is that? That reality which is in the Hridaya Guha, Buddhi Guha of all the beings. And that, that one reality, that is the Brahma, Sab Brahma, Sa Shivaha, that is Shiva. Sab Brahma, Sa Shivaha, Sa Harihi, that is Hari, Sa Indraha, Sokshara Paramaswarat, that is that Akshara Brahma. So all that is one only, which is manifesting in so many forms. And Purusha Suktam also says, Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha, Namani Krutva Vivadanyadaste, it says. So like that, Purusha Sukta is meditation on oneness. Rudra, Sri Rudram is a meditation on oneness. So many suktas are meditations on oneness. So in fact, when we see them, Purusha Sukta is only some worship. When you go to a temple, almost in all pujas, people recite Purusha Sukta, Shri Sukta, Uttaranarayanam, etc. And if we just listen to that, okay, there is some good feeling, but then we don't realize the meaning. Then when we come to these practical steps which are told in the Gita to realize oneness, then what is the way in which our saints planned? This Pravrutti Dharma and Nivrutti Dharma, very recently also we discussed it. Pravrutti Dharma is how a person has to go about doing his duty in the world. And it is harmonized with the Nivrutti Dharma. It is not as though Pravrutti Dharma is totally ignored, because no Dharma Shastra can ignore human nature. It has to go in accordance with the human nature. It can only regulate human nature, but it cannot totally check human nature. So while accepting the human goals, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, dharma, artha, and kama come under the pravrutti, and moksha is a nivrutti. So pravrutti dharma is totally harmonized. Artha and kama are achieved in the framework of dharma only, so that enables the person to go to the next level. That gives the purity of mind, so that the person is eligible for that jnana marga. Then the first thing we see in the Gita is, now we are referring to Gita only in particular, we see the karma yoga for purification of mind, which is working in harmony. As I said, we are working in harmony with the divine scheme. Then Gita talks about this Atma Sanyama in that 5th and 6th chapters, which we see Sanyama, that self-purification by practice of this yoga. And then dhyana meditation, Patanjali yoga also is mentioned in this the Gita. Then we see the 10th and of course, about meditations we see in the 7th, 8th chapters also of the Gita, various types of meditation, and how this oneness meditation leads to Devayana, and then simple karma, mere karma, leads to Pitruyana. So the Devayana, Pitruyana, that is Shuklagati and Krishnagati, all those things are mentioned. So coming to this meditation, Then we see in chapter 10, these are all the individual forms. That is Vibhuti, as we say. Vibhuti is, here again we have to see. Nantosti mama divyanam vibhutinam parantapa dhananjaya, something he says. Nantosti mama vibhuti, nantosti mama divyanam vibhutinam dhananjaya, he says. That is, these vibhutis are endless. Because Prakriti again is endless. It is, when was this Prakriti? When did this universe, originate? That is, it is co-eval with Brahman. Because when Brahman is there, that Brahman, that Maya Shakti also is there. When Maya Shakti is always there, that also is there. So that is the reason why Shankaracharya points at one point of time, that is in 13th chapter, he says, if God were to create the universe at a particular point of time, what was he doing till then? He says, Ishwarasya Anishwaratva Prasangaha, he says, if there was nothing to lord over, he cannot even be called a lord at that time. So Ishwarasya Anishwaratva Prasangaha. So like that, in this 10th chapter, what we see is various vibhutis, various manifestations, excellent, brilliant manifestations of that supreme thing, not Brahman. Brahma, Ishvara. When we say that manifestation, we are talking at the level, at a lower level. That is called Ishvara level. Ishvara again, we all know that Ishvara doesn't refer to Parvati's husband. The person who received Ganga in his head, not that Ishvara. We are referring to a philosophical concept. Ishvara in Vedanta is a philosophical concept. It is not a person. When we look at from the point of view of God, it is called Ishvara. When you look at it from the point of view of Jiva, the same Hiranyagarbha it is called. Hiranyagarbha is again all sort of philosophical terms. That's all. Hiranyagarbha is not a person. Similarly, Virat is not a person. So this 10th chapter, it tells about various forms. For example, Vrishninam Vasudevosmi. Among the Vrishnis, I am Vasudeva. Pandavanam Dhananjaya. Among the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya. And for example, Niti Rasmi Jigishatam. I am that strategy among people who want to win. So like that, there are not only human beings, but even animals like the Simha. And there are things like abstract things also. Srisha, Narina, Medha, Dhruti, all these things, various good characteristics in the women. So these are my vibhuti. That is what he says. So these vibhutis are also mentioned for the purpose of upasana. But there, at the end of the 10th chapter, Krishna says, why do you bother about all these individual upasanas? You come to Vishwarupa Upasana. Vishwarupa means the cosmic, the whole cosmos, you take it as one entity and then do upasana. That is what we see in Purusha Sukta. That is what we see in the 11th chapter of the Gita, that Vishwarupa Upasana. Then the 12th chapter, when we go, this deity to a bhakti, this psychology of bhakti is very great. For example, when we are doing karma yoga may not give us that ego attenuation. Ego has to be made thin, attenuation of ego. That doesn't happen in karma yoga. Suppose I am doing karma yoga, I may still be proud. Oh, I am doing this. That I notion has not gone. And various other things, dhyana yoga, Patanjali yoga. There I may get some yogic powers, and then I may be very good in meditation. Then I feel okay, I have conquered anger, etc., etc. But that ego is something which doesn't disappear. Bhakti is a way where the immediate surrender of ego is there. In that bhakti, there is immediate surrender of ego, that self, that happens very easily. The surrender of ego is very, very difficult in other paths. Then path of knowledge, that is after this is mere bhakti is not enough. Mere bhakti is okay. Mere bhakti, you achieve that that particular loka of a particular god. But then only realization, path of knowledge, jnana yoga, as Shankaracharya says in this line is from Viveka Chodamani, Vairagya Bodhavu Purushasya Pakshivat, he says. Vairagya on one side, Vairagya is dispassion, self-discipline, and then inner purification. Inner purification on one side. And Jnana Marga, that is Vedanta Vakyanam Avagahana. Vedanta, we have to understand the meaning of the Veda, and then Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, these three on one side. and self-discipline is one wing. So with these two wings, this bird, the seeker, who is like a bird, he can fly and then go to the top of that moksha, Saudhagra Talam. There is one line which I forget. So that moksha is like a huge mansion. So this bird can fly with these two wings and then it can go to the top. Only when these two are there. With only one wing, it cannot fly. So then Jnanabhyasa or Nididhyasana is suggested for at all times. It is not as though we understand Vedanta once and then you leave it. Jnanabhyasa is very much needed unless it becomes very firm in our mind. Then in our tradition, the unique nature is that the individual grows to the level of Brahman. You are asked to grow to the level of Brahman. It doesn't mean that, okay, Brahma is creating all this universe, you create this universe, somebody may ask. So for such people, we cannot answer because we are not talking about this creation of this universe. We don't say, even Vedanta doesn't say that God has suddenly come and then he said, okay, I'll create this, I'll create that, etc., etc. Creation has happened. That is what we see in our textbooks. Then the individual grows creation, of course, it has happened means God also, that Ishvara also thinks. Why? That is prani karma. There is a lot of, in the earlier creation, all these people, all the pranis have done a lot of karma. So depending on the karma that is lying in a seed form, bija sthiti, bija avastha. And then when the new creation comes, data yatha purvam akalpayam, like earlier, he creates another another creation. Then again, depending on the karma, this parani karma is the triggering factor. That is the reason we find in chapter 8 also, visarga karma sangitaha. Bhuta bhavodbhava karo visarga karma sangitaha. That line is there, 8th chapter in the beginning itself. Bhuta bhavodbhava karo visarga karma sangitaha. That is Bhuta bhavodbhava karaha means karma is something which is the originating factor for the creation. That is what we see there. So then the highest human goal, what is the highest human goal? To reach to the level of Brahman. And the enlightened person, again, we see that he becomes Ativarnashrami. It is not in the Gita. It is there in, of course, Gita also in other words it is there. Ativarnashrami term is in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. That is, he transcends the Varna and Ashrama. He goes beyond the social identity, attachment, hate, prejudices, etc. Again, when we talk of this principle of oneness, suppose all the people are exposed to this particular thought, suppose the entire world is exposed to this thought, let us say, then there will be natural peace. There will be so much of peace. Of course, I'll come to that also. Then all others, then what is the use of this particular person? So there is some criticism we find in some quarters. Oh, you talk about this Jnani and whatnot, Atma Jnani. What is the use of this Atma Jnani? What is the use of this Atma Jnani means he is somewhat like a leading, he is like a beacon light for all other people, for the entire society. All others, they have reverence for him. And the enlightened persons, they become the moral mentors. They are the moral mentors for the society. They are the role models for the society. Because the enlightened person, it doesn't mean that he gives up karma. Enlightened person need not give up karma. If there is a prarabdha, for example, King Janaka, etc., he continues to do karma. Sakta karmanya vidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata, as Gita says, kuryad vidvans tatha asakta chikirsur loka sangraham. Keeping that loka sangraha in mind, a person, a jnani, a realized person can also do karma. He may not do karma, he may do karma also. Then all other people who have not realized oneness, but accept it on seeing the realized person. This is something which is a verifiable thing. That is what we see. Atmajnana and this Brahmananda Sthiti is something which is verifiable because many rishis, they have achieved it. Even today, there may be many people, we may not be knowing them. Even many people, there may be many sages who are in that state of enlightenment, in that state of Brahmajnana. Then now I have almost come to the end of this talk. How to preserve this talk, this thought, this particular idea, this philosophy of the Upanishads. You see, now I am coming again to this social harmony and the sociological angle. We know that there are global forces which are whose aim is to discredit the Indian thought. This is for two reasons. One is it may be misunderstanding. It may be honest misunderstanding. It is quite possible, honest misunderstanding, because they don't know the tradition. They superficially read the text, and then some people might have known, some people might have not known, and the people who do not know also may be writing something. So it may be due to misunderstanding, or it is due to agenda also. So it is agenda also is very much visible nowadays. If we see particularly how certain attacks are taking place. Attacks means intellectual attacks are taking place against Indian thought. We see that there is definite design. So we can understand this global force. Now what I have done is, can we examine the whole global forces in terms of the three gunas? We know that there is Sattva guna, Rajo guna, and Tamo guna. Can we apply this principle? Because this principle is universal. There is no doubt about it. It is not confined to India or Hindus or something like that. This Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, etc. These are universal. So that is what Shankaracharya in his commentary in this 18th chapter, he says, this Kapilaha means the followers of Kapila, they are the people Gunasankhyane, Gunasankhyanā, that word Gunasankhyanā, while commenting on that, he says, Kapilas, they are the experts. They are the people who have very clearly understood the activity of these gunas. So there is nothing wrong in accepting them. We may not accept the final doctrine of Sankhya, but this particular portion, there is nothing wrong in accepting, because it is helping us in understanding the practical level. So that is what Shankaracharya says. So we can also apply this guna theory to what are the global forces which we see. So Krishna, he diagnoses these three attitudes. Suppose we see in the 18th chapter, in fact, these are so nice that I want to read these shlokas. Oh, I forgot to keep the book. Yeah. You see, these three shlokas are 18th chapter, shloka 20, 21, and 22. Shloka number 20 reads, Shloka number 20 reads, Sarva, there is a Sattvika, a person who is having the Sattva temperament. How does he look at the world? How does he perceive the world? Sarva Bhuteshu yena ekam bhavam avyayam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tad jnanam vidhi sattvikam. So a person who is endowed with this Sattvika and Sattva guna, so even if he is seeing 100 people in front of him, there may be 100 people, but he sees oneness in them. That is Sarvabhuteshu, Yena Ekam Bhavam Avyayam, that which is common to all, that which unifies all people. So the tendency of a person is to see oneness. So then you come to the next person, that is Rajoguna. That Rajoguna, what happens? There, Pruthatvena tu Yajnanam, that is Shloka number 21. Pruthatvena. So if there are 100 people, so he actually 100. Okay, these are 100 people. Oh, he is red, he is black, he is white, he is black, etc., etc. Or he is like this. He is superior, he is inferior. So like that, like what the British people did in in classifying the Indian society, in stratifying that Indian society and all that. They are the people who divided our society. So like that, that is the typical of Rajoguna. Prutatvena tu yajnanam nanabhavan prutagvidhan. Nanabhavan means all the entities which are in front of us. Prutagvidhan, seeing all the differences, he notes all these differences. Like one fellow called Risley, he prepared what is called a nasal index. So who are having all long noses, who are having that snub nose, etc. He prepared all this nasal index in order to say that all the people who are having long nose, they are the Aryas, and then the people who have short noses, they are the Dravidas, etc., etc. So this Varthak all these differences, they note, they enumerate all the differences. So they are the people, they are endowed with Rajoguna. Tadjnanam vidhi Rajasam. Then you come to the next line, which is rather very, it can even be sensitive. Yattu Krusnavad ekasmin karye saktam ahaitukam. Krusnavat ekasmin karye. In one entity, he says, yes, this is the only truth. Krutsanam is entirety. Krutsanam is entire, whole. So in one small thing, he says, yes, this is the only truth. He leaves all other things and then he says, yes, this is the only truth. Ekasmin karye saktam. Ahaitukam. Ahaitukam means something which is, there is no hetu, totally irrational, without reason. Without reason, totally irrational. Atatvarthavat. Atatvarthavat means it is not true. Tatvartham is, Tatvarthavat means that which has truth in it. Atatvarthavat is that which doesn't have any truth in it. And then alpancha, that which is petty. Tat tamasamudahardam. That sort of tendency, that is tamasa tendency. So these 20, 21 and 22, you kindly read along with the commentaries also. Shankaracharya also comments on this 22nd sloka, on this thing. You see, yatha, this is sarva vishayam, yattu krishnavat samastavat sarva vishayamiva ekasmin karye dehe ekasmin karye. The meaning of karye is dehe vahihiva pratimado. It can be in any entity or in any concept. Yatavaneva Atma Ishwarova. Well, Atma means only this. Ishwara, God means only this. Na atah paramasti, not beyond this, nothing else beyond this. Yatha nagna kshapanakadinam sharirantarvarti deha parimano jivaha. So I'll skip this line. Ishwarova Pashana Dharvadi Matram. Ishwara, yes, this particular idol, this is the only God. Or this particular place, this God who is there, he is the only God. So like that, he says, yeah, what I say is the only reality. So that sort of thing. Ahaitukam, hetuvarjitam, niryuktikam, that is which is illogical, irrational. Then atatvarthavat, ayathabhutarthavat, something which is false. So this person sticks on to his own theory. Yes, this is the only truth and this has to be believed by all. So he takes one small thing, alpam, and then he says, yes, this has to be accepted by all. So these three shlokas, they encapsulate, or rather they summarize the tendencies of all the people in the world. That's what I feel. And we stand somewhere in the 20th shloka where a lot of sattva-guna is there. We want to see oneness. We want to see oneness in so many things. That is avivaktam vivakteshu tajnanam vidhi sattvikam, he says. So that sort of jnana is sattvikam. So we are somewhere there, whereas there is a mix of rajoguna and tamoguna outside India, and I don't want to elaborate on that. So holding on to a limited idea as the only truth is tamoguna. So there are cultures which use violence to push their idea of oneness, tamoguna, and religion also sometimes may actively promote aggression. And some other cultures, they do have an admiration for Indian thought. I am actually analyzing the global forces which are now we are seeing. So they do have an admiration for Indian thought. What does it mean? They do have a capacity for sattva in them. They do have a capacity for sattva. And then again, Gita says, sattva guna has to take the help of rajoguna in order to check the tamoguna. This is again a great formula which we see in the Gita, which we see in Ramayana also. Ramayana, sattva guna is supposed to, rajoguna has to be first suppressed. Rajoguna has to first control tamoguna. And then rajoguna has to be controlled by sattva guna. That is the formula which we see in Ramayana. So here also in the Gita it says sattva and rajoguna. That is what we find in the 4th chapter of the Gita, at the very beginning. Shankaracharya writes. Then we have to, what I feel, this is my own individual wishful thinking. We have to engage with all groups and then try to increase our influence on those who have the sattva guna. So you see, that is what our Swamijis are doing. Many of our Swamijis like Sarvapriyananda, etc., who are going and then who are talking in that Vedanta Society of California, and then many people, many including scientists, etc., they do come and listen. So these gentlemen also, they also go to Harvard and places like that. They do some courses there, and they broaden their understanding. In fact, when you study modern physics, of course, we sitting here, we don't have that opportunity. But our Swamijis are going and doing courses in Harvard. That is what we see in people like Sarvapriyananda. So these are the people who are influencing scholars worldwide, and they are doing the greatest service. Then the problem is many educated Indians. The tragedy here is at home. The tragedy is basically at home. We can't find fault with our educated Indians. We can't say that they are all fools because they are so disconnected. We are somehow fortunate. You and I, we are just fortunate that we have somehow come into this line, and then we are now thinking, oh, we have such a great tradition. We have now realized at least, may not be realized people, but we have realized at least that we belong to a very great tradition. which is somewhere this reality is something which is reality. What we say reality is actually the reality. There is incontrovertible. It is incontrovertible, irrefutable reality, and which is there in our books, in our doctrine. It is so all-inclusive. It is so liberal. So that sort of, we are very fortunate that we belong to this tradition, and we are also fortunate that we have somehow entered into this line of study. But then many people, many educated Indians, they are disconnected from our roots because they were never taught. We can't find fault with them. They were never taught about their thought, and these people can become easy victims for any adverse propaganda. So all our effort, in my view, all our effort should be about educating our youth, particularly our youth. And when we see these global forces, we can see the global forces as, if we have a larger picture, it is a sort of eternal interplay of these gunas. These gunas, they do fight among them. These three gunas always they try to supersede one another. That is also what we see in the Gita. Rajoguna tries to suppress the other two, Sattva tries to suppress the other two. So like that, that shloka also is there. So this is an interplay of these gunas, and social harmony or world peace, let us say. It is dependent on how Sattva Guna can civilize the world. This is again my wishful thinking. Sattva Guna, if our people, more and more of our people can know our own fundamentals. It is not as though I am jingoistic or anything like that. Absolutely not jingoistic. We do have truth with us. There is no doubt about it. We do have that oneness. Reality is indisputable reality. So it is dependent on lot many people who get exposed to this. Social harmony will be dependent on how this Sattva Guna can civilize the world. In fact, I am sounding like that Rudyard Kipling who said white man's burden. Now I am almost talking like brown man's burden. So this brown man's burden, it is my wishful thinking. Probably our CM, our Prime Minister also very often says Vishwaguru. Probably he may be having this in mind, I don't know. Then I come to my last point. So far, what did we see? So far, we had a discussion which is confined to only one factor which affects harmony. There are many other factors which affect social harmony. What all discussion we had is only about one factor which affects the social harmony. What are the other factors which affect the social harmony? That is, a society or a country or a culture, I can also write a culture or a civilization, can be broken in three ways. That is economic strategies. When we see the global developments, what these Western forces are doing, and how they are interfering in various countries, etc. Not only Western forces, whoever is powerful. It may be China, it may be China may not be doing that much wrong. China may be trying to encroach into India, but then the Western forces, they have done a lot of damage to the whole several countries. So there can be economic strategies to weaken a country. There can be political strategies. They can prop up lot many small people and then fund them. People like Soros and other people, they can create a lot of nuisance and destroying our culture. So only this culture angle we have discussed so far. Culture and then oneness and then what is the meaning of oneness, etc. So there can be other two prominent, mainly I have identified three ways. That is, one is economic strategies, political strategies, and destroying the culture. So, but all these factors have to be kept in mind by our intellectuals and also by the political leaders. Political leader also has to know that if our culture goes, then the society, it cannot be ruled by only police. It cannot be ruled by only the army. It is not the army which can control it can only it can protect the territorial integrity for some time. But if the people want to fall apart, nobody can help. So all these three factors are very essential. And particularly this culture, this oneness, this doctrine which we have is such a precious thing. And if it is lost, then it will be a great loss to humanity. I don't think it will be lost, because if it is lost in even if India becomes weak, it will be accepted in the West, at least by some people. The thought will be there. But if the whole society, if it is there in such a beautiful form, so it is not our, if we are not wise, if we allow it to lapse, or if we allow it to fail. So with these words, I want to end. So 54 minutes, okay. So I think I can stop here. Any questions, Nitinji? Anuradha ji?
That was a wonderful talk, and you really inspired us to cultivate the Sattva Guna and have oneness in our vision in our normal life. So, how does one cultivate this Sattva Guna, Rao, Mr. Rao, Dr. Rao? For ordinary people who are not perhaps knowing Vedanta or something, how do they cultivate?
Sattva Guna, there is no other way. There is no other way except to study, and then follow some teachers, and then try to apply it. Not only study, but try to apply it at every step. And application is very, very important. Because as I said, these two wings of the bird, it's a very good example given by Shankaracharya. And that is what he stresses. That is what is stressed not only by Shankaracharya, but in all texts. So that is, it has to be, sadhana has to be there. If sadhana is not there, mere intellectualism is of not much use. People will still be arrogant. I may be talking Vedanta, but I may still be arrogant, and all frailties may be there. Sattva Guna has to be cultivated. Of course, we all have some Sattva Guna, luckily. That is the reason why we are here. I always feel that.
And how does one counter this, the Tamo Guna, the brainwashing and the propaganda of the Tamo Guna? How does one counter? Is it also again by through knowledge, or how else can we equip ourselves?
Yeah, if we see this, I suddenly forget that episode in Ramayana. There are two episodes. One is between Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. Vasishtha represents Sattva Guna and Vishwamitra represents the Tamo Guna, Rajo Guna. Prior to that, there is another episode where this Tamo Guna is controlled by Rajo Guna. That is this Tataka and what is this Maricha, Subahu, etc., etc. There, both Valmiki has written and also commentators have written about how this Tamo Guna, this Maricha, Subahu, and Tataka, all these people, they do represent this Tamo Guna. That has to be controlled by Rajo Guna only. That is by force. So Tamo Guna has to be controlled by force, because Tamo Guna, I don't know whether it can be controlled by, it can be influenced by Sattva Guna. Maybe it is quite possible, because even in a person who is endowed with Tamo Guna, there will be some element of Sattva Guna. So that Sattva Guna may get kindled. So that is the reason why I said we have to engage with all sections. We should continuously engage with all sections patiently. And we should know, first of all, we should know our own strength, so that our people or our children, they don't get influenced by this false propaganda. Because that is another problem, because the people, all this false propaganda, if we listen to that, unless we are very thorough with our fundamentals, it will be difficult to counter them. So this knowledge of Vedanta seems to be one factor which is very, very essential for preserving Indian, national integrity also. That is what I sincerely feel.
There's one more question from one of our attendees, and he's asking that, do we need initiation for starting sadhana? Do we need a guru? What would your answer be to that?
For starting, for initiation, in fact, I don't know. I have not undergone any initiation in a formal way. Going to a teacher and then taking a mantra from him, that sort of initiation I have not undergone. But I regularly attended classes and then listened to them. Then it is something which it has to come from within. We have to check out our own syllabus in that way. Teacher will not, some people, if they are kind, they will say, but teachers are also slightly reserved nowadays, because they, in fact, in olden days, teachers used to scold and then they used to pull up a student. So if modern teachers, they are very rather, they are also very, what can we say, they don't cross a particular limit while teaching, while speaking to a student. So if we have a teacher who can scold us, you are fortunate. If we get a teacher who can roughly speak to us, no, you are wrong. So then we are really fortunate. But unfortunately, we don't find teachers like that. We have to check out our own syllabus for sadhana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. It was a very enlightening session. We have many more sessions like this, and tomorrow morning, if we just put on the slide. Tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock India time, we have Vijay Kapoor talking to us about Adi Shankara's view of cosmic creation. So please join us for this session. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you.